Mario Kart is easily the most loved and recognized kart racing series of video games of all time. The 8 Mario Kart titles have gone on to sell over 100 million copies combined, making this little Nintendo spin-off one of the company's biggest franchises and huge cash cow. Mario Kart has had many imitators over the years, and while some of them have had great ideas and innovations of their own, they always seem to loom in the shadows of the go-kart driving plumber. Recently, Mario Kart 8 was released. Many hailed it as the greatest kart racing game ever. But what if I told you there was another racing game worthy of being in the same conversation as the great and mighty Mario Kart 8? Okay, make all the fuss you want, but it doesn't change the fact that Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed is not only a great racing game in its own right, it has every right to be in the debate as the best kart racing game available on the all-but-dead Wii U console. This is Versus, where I take two video games, it could be a game and its sequel, or just two games from which many correlations can be made, and I compare and contrast them to see which one is the better overall choice. Today on Versus, we'll take a look at Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed and Mario Kart 8. The criteria I will be judging these two games on are as follows: the gameplay, tracks, racers, single player, multiplayer, and best value. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transforms gameplay overall seems to favor skill over item usage or pure luck, which for more hardcore gamers is a good thing. What sets this kart racer apart is that the action doesn't always take place on the road. Sometimes it's up in the sky, and a fair bit of it takes place in the water too. Winning a race will require you to not only have mastered the road racing mechanics, but also the flying mechanics and the boat racing mechanics. Road racing is the most traditional of the three. Veterans of the Mario Kart series will have no problem getting into this aspect of the game. The on-the-ground racing is insanely fast-paced and pretty much requires the players to master the drift mechanic. If not, you'll be bumping into walls a lot, or just straight up falling off the course. Drifts can be built up over multiple curves with several levels. The more time you spend drifting, the larger of a boost you'll get. Boost panels are all over the tracks too, so you can maintain a pretty high speed. And let me tell you, it's pretty satisfying to string together several boosts and zoom well ahead of the pack. There are also ramps and ledges to drive off. Flicking the secondary analog stick will allow you to perform flips and rolls. If landed properly, these also can give you a big speed boost. More skilled players will take advantage of any air time they can get, performing small flips and tricks to get small boosts of speed throughout the race. Overall, the road racing is fast-paced and fun. If you're a fan of conventional kart racing games, you'll have no complaints with it. Sometimes racing takes to the sky, and this is where the gameplay slows down considerably. The problem with the sky racing is that it just seems like you rely heavily on hitting boost rings, but that's about it. The free-range nature of the flight mode mean you can't really rely on drifting and doing tricks. Sure, there are obstacles to avoid, but the flying just sort of feels a bit tacked on. Thankfully, most courses don't rely much on flight. The flaw with this is that it's sort of jarring to go from tearing up the tight curves of the road at massive speeds to slowly flying through large open spaces. The final style of racing you'll be doing is down in the water. The boat racing is a lot like the on-the-road racing. It just feels like the control is a bit looser, which is actually pretty realistic because cars obviously drive much tighter than boats. To compensate looser control, the waterways are typically wider than the tracks and the curves are larger as well. Drifts and stunts are just as pivotal as they are on the road, and boost rings are plentiful. While I do prefer the on-the-road racing the most, I wouldn't give up the air or water racing because they make for some creative level designs. Overall, the gameplay is pretty darn solid, but the mixed bag nature of it might turn off a certain set of players. The game is pretty difficult to play at any of the higher levels and isn't as casual to get into as most kart racers. It certainly takes a bit of time to learn how everything in the game works. Mario Kart 8, on the other hand, is a much more relaxing and casual racing experience. It only takes a few minutes to figure out how everything works, especially for veterans of the series. While it may not be as fast-paced as Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, everything on offer from the game pretty much hits the nail on the head. The core road racing is just as solid as always. But Mario Kart 8 ups the ante by refining or adding all new mechanics to the racing. For example, the hang gliding and underwater racing introduced in Mario Kart 7 felt like they were sort of gimmicky, but in Mario Kart 8 they've sped things up, changed the amount of control players have whilst in the air, and they even made the underwater sections less insufferable. Mario Kart 8's new feature is the anti-gravity mode, which isn't as invasive as it sounds. You know the road racing? It's pretty much that, except the wheels on your kart turn sideways and you get boost from bumping into other racers. This new feature allows for tracks to curve upside down and around loops and whirls. The unfortunate setback to this is that in order to maintain orientation, you can't really even tell when you are upside down or driving in anti-gravity mode because not a whole lot changes mechanically from just driving on the regular track. It's not until you look at the track design itself that you see how creative this feature is. Now there are a few exceptions where you can really see the anti-gravity mode running its course while you're racing, but typically things don't change enough to really make a player aware of what's going on. Coins were brought back from the older games in the series. For those of you who don't know, collecting more coins allows your top speed to increase, but the game isn't really entirely reliant on them. For example, it's perfectly possible to win a race without any of them, and overall the coins serve as a tiny game changer. Items are pretty much the same as always. They can make or break a race, which is why I've always said that Mario Kart games feel more like they are about luck than actual skill, but thankfully recovering from getting hit by items has too been sped up from past games in the series. And unless you get hit by several items in a row, which does happen from time to time, you don't feel as derailed when getting hit by an item. Unfortunately, drifting has been simplified. Instead of drifting being based upon how fast a player can tap directional inputs, it's more based on how long you hold the drift. The boost you get from drifting doesn't feel as powerful as previous games. Much like with the coins, it's perfectly possible to win a race without using the drift mechanic at all. The gameplay is just rock solid and addictive though. All of the different racing styles in Mario Kart 8 feel pretty well intertwined, and nothing really changes the game enough that it's jarring like it is in Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. So, best gameplay goes to Mario Kart 8. The accessibility and consistency of the gameplay make this one with a better choice in my eyes. While Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed might technically have more features and mechanics, none of them feel quite as refined as Mario Kart 8's gameplay, where all racing styles are connected seamlessly. Don't get me wrong, for hardcore players who like speed and challenge, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed is probably a better choice. But Mario Kart 8 covers enough bases that the beginners can enjoy it, and so can hardcore players. What's a racing game without the tracks? Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed has a bit of an edge over Mario Kart 8 in this category, in the sense that it isn't limited to just a single universe for its course design, but to Sega's entire IP library. There are 21 total courses in Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, and while I do wish there were more of them, what we do have is pretty good. A vast majority of Sega's franchises are represented in the game. Sonic the Hedgehog, Monkey Ball, Shinobi, The House of the Dead, Knights. Even lesser-known franchises like Billy Hatcher and Outrun have courses based on their universe. For the most part, each track in Transform pays incredibly faithful homage to its source material, the most stunning of which is the Kyrian Mansion from The House of the Dead, which, if you played the game, pretty much recreates the experience one-to-one. Some tracks will focus more on one particular mechanic. For example, the Afterburner track is mostly a flying stage, whereas something like the Monkey Ball level is spent almost entirely on the road. Every single track in the game has at least two of the three racing styles represented in some form too. I think the track that strikes the most perfect balance between them is the Panzer Dragoon course, where it feels like you spend equal amounts of time on the road, in the air, and in the water. I enjoy most of the tracks in the game, but there are a few of them that miss the mark, mainly the Casino course and the Billy Hatcher course. The Casino course just doesn't seem like it fits into the game at all. Most of it is spent on the road, but the design of the track doesn't seem like it was made with Transform's boost mechanic in mind. The Billy Hatcher course feels way too narrow. You'll be hitting walls at basically every curve, and the water section is pretty annoying too. The slim tunnel you boat through just doesn't ever feel like there is enough clearance. Those are really the only two courses I dislike in the whole game though. The other 19 are pretty good. I love the crazy design and randomness of the Samba de Amigo stage. I just want to slow down and take it all in. The Shinobi level is awesome too, with its giant jumps and cool architecture to go along with it. Don't even get me started on the Skies of Arcadia stage either. The flight section in that course is hands down the best in the whole game, and yeah, overall the tracks in Transformed are pretty solid. The only issue being is if you are partial to one racing style and one style only, there really aren't too many courses that cater to this mindset. While there are a lot of great courses in the game, it's hard to get a good feel for some of them because the track transforms after one lap, or you race on a different section of the course. This makes them difficult to master or speedrun. Overall though, I like the tracks in Transformed a lot. Mario Kart 8's tracks are quite possibly some of the best the series has to offer. When the game launched, there were 32 tracks available, 16 new courses and 16 retro courses. I'm only going to focus on the new courses introduced in Mario Kart 8, because while the retro courses are always fun, they aren't unique to the game. They can be enjoyed in other Mario Kart games. Mario Kart 8's track designs definitely don't seem as conservative as the ones from 7. Right away it seems like they went all out with the courses in the game. Water Park is creative and fast-paced even though it takes place almost entirely underwater. Sweet Sweet Canyon has multiple pathways. The Electrodome has really cool anti-gravity sections. Toad Harbor mixes in the traffic aspect everyone loves. Everything inherent to Mario Kart is here, and then some. The developers definitely eschewed tradition for some of these courses, and it pays off. I can say with complete confidence that the course design in this game is some of the best in the series. It's never afraid to push the envelope with its structure. It even throws out the traditional 3 identical laps idea in Mount Wario, which is probably the best course the game has to offer. Ironically, the most boring courses in the game to me are the traditional ones. You know, the Bowser's Castle, Mario Circuit, and Rainbow Road that just have to be in every Mario Kart game. I think it would have been cool to see a new Donkey Kong course too. The only course in this whole game that I really dislike is the Bone-Dried Dunes, just for its sheer blandness compared to everything else in the game. The game has the HD graphics on its side too, which I think make it the most visually diverse and creative of all the Mario Kart games. These courses are absolutely beautiful. I guess I should talk a bit about the new DLC courses too. Nintendo branched out from simply just Mario Kart and took more of a Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed approach with the DLC by adding some courses based off of their other IPs. The Animal Crossing stages don't seem too far off from something that could exist in Mario Kart 8. And they're pretty cool. Maybe not quite as good as the base game's tracks, but they certainly aren't bad either. Legend of Zelda course is pretty cool too, but once you get over the novelty of it, it's a pretty standard racetrack. The F-Zero racetracks change the game a lot, which is good, and they definitely pay great respect to F-Zero by having pretty similar design to something you would find in an actual F-Zero game. I think my favorite is the Excitebike course. Even though it's just a big oval, the multiple jumps and large curves make for great competitive racing that feels more skill-based than some of the other tracks that have a lot of pits and hazards. The other DLC tracks are pretty harmless too. Fun, but maybe not as well thought out as some of the other tracks that launched with the game. Overall, the winner of this category is once again Mario Kart 8. While Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transform has some pretty awesome courses, the likability of them is more so grounded in which aspect of the gameplay the player wants to put up with. While having 3 different racing styles integrated into one single track is incredibly creative, it just seems like there is too much inconsistency in the design to ever get a great feel for them. Mario Kart 8 on the other hand rarely misses the mark. Each course not only feels unique, but also completely new from tracks from older games in the series. Next up is the Racers, available to play as in the game, and thankfully Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transform represents Sega as a whole extremely well. Sure, you've got a fair amount of Sonic characters like Dr. Robotnik, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Shadow, Metal Sonic, and Sonic himself. Some of the other roster choices are surprisingly great. For more modern Sega fans, characters like Beat from Jet Set Radio, Ulala from Space Channel 9, Ai from Monkey Ball, BD Joe from Crazy Taxi, Amigo from Samba de Amigo, and most surprisingly Vice from Skies of Arcadia all appear as playable characters. Sega even catered to more nostalgic audience with additions like Joe Musashi from Shinobi, Gilius from Golden Axe, Knights from, well, Knights, and my personal favorite, Alex Kidd from the Alex Kidd series. There are even a few guest star characters like Wreck-It Ralph, which is pretty cool, and Danica Patrick. Also, you can race as your Mii, making it a crossover character since you can play as Miis in Mario Kart 8 as well. I really like this roster, and I think it's pretty great. Mario Kart 8's character roster, on the other hand, well, let's just say I'm not going to be the first one to complain about it. The biggest addition to the series is the Koopalings, which I admit was pretty cool at first. You've also got all of your series staples: Mario, Luigi, Toad, Peach, Bowser, Yoshi, DK, and Wario. And even a few other fan favorites like Koopa, Rosalina, and Waluigi. But the rest of the roster is not all that great in my eyes. They chose to put 5 different baby characters in the game, which is fine, but why in the hell do we need Metal Mario and Gold Peach? They cut fan favorite racers like Birdo, Dry Bones, Baby Bowser, and Diddy Kong, which is a decision I still can't wrap my head around. With DLC, they added 6 more racers: Villager, Isabelle, and Link, which are all cool characters to have, but then they also added Tanuki Mario, Cat Peach, and Dry Bowser. My question becomes, why does the DLC have yet another incarnation of Mario and Peach? If you're keeping count, that's 4 variants of 2 characters. If you're like me and not a fan of the babies, Koopalings, or clone racers, that leaves you with about 18 racers to choose from, which is abysmal compared to the great roster of characters Mario Kart Wii had. It goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, I'm not a fan of Mario Kart 8's roster. So this round goes to Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. Next up, Best Single Player. Well, I can definitely tell you that Transformed certainly has a pretty dense single player mode, especially compared to the majority of kart racers. The meat of the single player is the career mode, where the player meets objectives to unlock hidden courses and characters. These range from simple races to boost challenges, to avoiding traffic, to even boss fights. It's always rewarding to go to the next area, or unlock a new racer by completing objectives at higher levels. And I think single player is where Transformed really shines. It's an insane amount of fun to play most of the career mode challenges. It's definitely a callback to something like Diddy Kong Racing in the sense that it's a kart racer, yes, but it's got a lot more to offer than just racing. It's refreshing to see nowadays where lots of games like this rely on online multiplayer and skimp on the single player options. Transform definitely offers a solid single player mode and remains one of the main reasons I still pick up and play this game pretty often. Mario Kart 8, on the other hand, well, single player is not its forte, let's say. Sure, there are time trials to complete and Grand Prix races to win, but aside from this, I mean, there isn't really much to do. Thankfully, the racing is great. I had a lot of fun playing by myself just to get the footage, but you can't help but think, yeah, this would be funner with friends. Historically, Mario Kart games aren't really meant to be enjoyed by yourself, they are meant to be played with others, therefore Nintendo opted to keep this game the same way. Overall, Mario Kart 8 is fun by yourself, but it's not going to immerse you in its single player gameplay like Transformed. Therefore, Best Single Player obviously goes to Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. Sonic and All-Stars Racing offers up a pretty forward-thinking multiplayer too. You can play 4-player split screen with a 5th player even being able to play on the gamepad. Plus you can play every game mode in the game in multiplayer, even career mode. The only problem is, well, it sort of sucks. The game's already low frame rate feels like it is halved when playing split screen, and it just seems sort of glitchy and incomplete. There are even a few multiplayer exclusive modes, but I'd be lying to you if I told you they weren't rubbish too. In my eyes, multiplayer sort of misses the mark, especially if you're used to the performance of the game in single player. Mario Kart 8 conversely thrives off multiplayer. In fact, every game in the Mario Kart series does. The frantic and competitive nature of the game can't truly be enjoyed unless you have a friend or two with you. The amount of time I've played Mario Kart 8 with friends is probably around 95%, just to show you how much fun this game is when you have a group. Nintendo has always made top-notch multiplayer games, and Mario Kart 8 is no exception. While fun alone, it becomes a whole new game when enjoyed with friends. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that Best Multiplayer goes to Mario Kart 8. Final criteria I'll be ranking these two games on is the best value. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed is available on 5 different platforms, and the average price of the game is around $20 new, which is a pretty good deal in my mind considering the amount of fun you can have with this game. If you're a fan of kart racing games, The transform mechanic is pretty neat, but as I iterated before, takes a bit of a time investment to get used to. It's definitely not a game where you can just jump right in and be good at it, but for 20 bucks or less, it's a pretty solid game to add to your collection and is definitely one of the best single player racing experiences out there right now. Mario Kart 8 on the other hand is a bit more pricey, running at around 40 bucks for a Wii U copy. If you want all of the downloadable racers and tracks, it's going to cost you another $12, bringing the total to just above $50. Now all things considered, I think that's a pretty good price for the content you're going to get, totaling with 48 tracks and 6 extra racers. But for an outdated system like the Wii U, the price still seems a bit high to justify. But what if I told you there was another version of Mario Kart 8 that is potentially a better value? Well, coming soon for the Nintendo Switch is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with a price tag of $60. The game not only includes all of the DLC from the Wii U version, but more racers and a new better battle mode too. Plus you'll be able to play it online for years to come since the Switch looks like it has a pretty bright outlook. Therefore I'm going to give the best value category to Mario Kart 8 overall, since the Switch version is pretty decently priced for something with as much content as it's going to have. That makes the winner of this episode of Versus Mario Kart 8. While both games have their strengths and weaknesses, Mario Kart 8 is just the more solid choice with better gameplay, courses, multiplayer, and value. This was a tough decision since they are both really great racing games, probably the two best kart racers of the 2010s. So if you like a little variety, pick them both up, nothing's stopping you. Thanks for checking out this episode of Versus, check back later for more.